In Python, there are a handful of common primitive data types we'll deal with frequently. Primitive data type usually means the simplest kind of data that we deal with. More complex data types may be built out of simple primitive data types. You've seen all these data types before already, but let's list them a little bit more clearly. To help us, we'll use a handy function in Python called the type function. Like the print function, we follow the type function with a set of parentheses, and into the parentheses we put some data, some input for that function to act on. The print function would take whatever we put in those parentheses and print it to the console. The type function will take whatever we put in the parentheses, whether it be a variable or a value, and it will tell us what type that variable or value has. So on line 1, the computer creates the variable myInteger and gives it the value 5. As far as print is concerned, after type is run, it's basically literally replaced by the text int, or in this case, this slightly more complicated text. So after the type function runs, print is just told to output to the console whatever the type function returned. In this case, it returned this, a message that says that myInteger is of the class or the type int. We'll talk more about what class means later, but for now, just know that it kind of means data type. Integers, floating point variables or decimals, strings of characters, booleans, these are all classes or data types. Our code continues to run, and on line 4, it creates the variable myFloat with the value 5.0. On line 5, it does the same thing. Prints type of myFloat generates that message. And so printing that message prints it to the console. This continues to line 7, where it creates myString, and to myString it gives the value 5.0. Now that's interesting. MyFloat had the value 5.0, but myString has it in quotation marks. That means that the computer interprets this 5.0, the one given to myFloat, as a number, while it interprets this 5.0 just as a string of characters. As a result, when we print the type of myString on line 8, we get that message, that myString is of type str, short for string. Then we continue a little bit further. On line 11, it creates myBoolean and gives it the value true. And on line 12, we see the code print the type of myBoolean, which gives us this, bool, short for Boolean. If these details regarding the type function and the print function are confusing, don't worry about them too much yet. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit just to show you how you could find the same kind of information in the code itself. The main takeaway you should have right now is that in Python, there's generally 4 data types we're going to use most often. Int for integer, float for floating point number or decimal number, str, short for string, a string of characters, basically a text message, and bool for Boolean, just a true or false value. The only other important distinction here is to note the difference between having 5.0 as a numeric value and 5.0 as a string. The quotes tell the computer to interpret it just as text as opposed to as a number.